10 plagues hit Egypt, and most people think it was random chaos, one disaster after another with no real order. But it was not. Every plague followed a tight, deliberate pattern, built in groups of 3. Pharaoh never saw it coming, even after 9 warnings in a row. By the end of this video, you will see it too, and once you understand it, you will read this story completely differently forever. Here is what nobody tells you about the 10 plagues. They were not 10 random disasters thrown at Egypt one after another. They were a structured takedown, aimed at a very specific target. 3 groups, 3 plagues each. Then one final blow that changed everything, all in a single night. This video breaks that structure down in plain language with no confusing terms and no church jargon. Just the story, explained clearly, the way it actually happened. This is the book of Exodus, chapters 7 through 12. Exodus tells the story of Israel's escape from slavery in Egypt after centuries of forced, brutal labor. It sits right after Genesis, right after the story of Joseph rising to power there and saving Egypt from a devastating famine. Generations later, a new Pharaoh forgot Joseph entirely and enslaved his descendants instead. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's own palace, then fled Egypt after killing a man, then met God at a burning bush out in the desert. God sent him back to Egypt with one job, to free the Israelite slaves. Tradition credits Moses as the writer of this book. He wrote it for the people of Israel, so they would remember exactly where they came from and what it cost to leave. Many scholars place these events somewhere around the 1400s or 1200s BC. You do not need a history degree to follow any of this. You just need the story itself. Let's start with the setup. Moses walks into Pharaoh's palace with one demand, backed by nothing but an old shepherd's staff. Exodus 5:1 puts it simply, "Let my people go." Pharaoh refuses, not once, not twice, but 9 separate times. Each refusal triggers the next plague, harder than the one that came before it. That refusal pattern is your first real clue. This is not chaos. This is a countdown, and Pharaoh was the one setting it off with every single no. Now look at the first 3 plagues closely. The Nile turns to blood, killing the fish and fouling the water Egypt depended on to survive every single day. Frogs cover the land, crawling into homes, beds, and ovens by the thousands. Gnats swarm everywhere, rising straight out of the dust itself. Notice something here. Moses warns Pharaoh before the first 2 plagues hit, giving him a fair chance to change course before disaster lands. The 3rd plague, the gnats, comes with no warning at all. Pharaoh's own magicians copy the first 2 tricks using their secret arts, turning water red and multiplying frogs on command. Blood they can fake, and frogs they can fake too. Gnats stop them cold, and they simply cannot reproduce it, no matter how hard they try. Exodus 8:29 records their own words. This is the finger of God. Even Pharaoh's own hired experts admit it out loud in front of everyone, but Pharaoh does not listen anyway. His heart stays hard. The second round follows that exact same rhythm. Flies swarm the land in thick, choking clouds that fill every home. Livestock disease wipes out Egyptian herds within a single devastating day. Boils break out on both people and animals. Painful enough that the magicians cannot even stand before Moses anymore. 2 plagues come with warning, 1 comes without. Here is where the story shifts in a major way. God draws a clear line between Egypt and Goshen, the region where the Israelites actually live. Exodus 8:22 says God will set apart the land of Goshen from that point forward. Egyptian cattle die from disease all across the country. Israelite cattle stay completely healthy the entire time. This is no longer just punishment falling on everyone equally, but a message aimed with precision at one specific group. Someone is deciding exactly who gets protected and who does not. The 3rd round raises the stakes even higher than before. Hail mixed with fire destroys crops and kills anything left outside unprotected. Locusts finish off whatever the hail happened to miss, stripping the land completely bare. Darkness covers Egypt for 3 straight days, thick enough that people said they could feel it. Again, 2 plagues arrive with warning, 1 arrives without. Exodus 9:16 gives the reason behind all of it, spoken directly to Pharaoh's face. God tells Pharaoh he was raised up specifically to show his own power, so his name would be known across the entire earth. This was never just about frogs and bugs and darkness. It was a public demonstration aimed at an entire nation that worshipped other gods entirely, in full view of everyone watching. Then comes Plague 10, the one everything else was building toward from the very start. The death of every firstborn son in Egypt, from Pharaoh's own house down to the lowest servant in the poorest home. This one comes with no warning cycle at all, no build-up, and no third strike to soften the blow. Just one sudden, final judgment arriving at midnight. But God gives Israel an escape plan first, with clear and specific instructions. Each family takes a lamb without defect and kills it at twilight. They paint its blood on the doorframes of their homes using a branch of hyssop. Exodus 12:13 explains exactly why this detail matters so much. When God sees the blood, he will pass over that house completely, and no plague will touch anyone inside it. That single night becomes Passover, a meal Jewish families still eat together today, thousands of years later. That night finally breaks Pharaoh completely, and he tells Moses to leave immediately, taking every single Israelite with him. So here is the pattern most readers miss entirely. 3 groups of 3 plagues each, and inside every group, the order stays exactly the same. Warning, warning, no warning. Then one final, unannounced strike that ends the entire standoff. 9 plagues build up the pressure step by step, and the 10th one ends it in a single, unforgettable night. Pharaoh gets 9 separate chances to change course before that happens, and he wastes every single one of them. There's something deeper going on here too, beneath the surface of the story. Each plague was not just a random attack on nature or crops, chosen at will. Egypt worshipped specific gods tied directly to the Nile, the sun, the livestock, and even Pharaoh himself. The Nile turning to blood strikes at Hapi, the god of the river and its yearly flooding. Frogs covering the land mock Heket, the frog goddess tied to fertility and childbirth. Darkness for 3 days strikes at Ra, the sun god and Egypt's most powerful deity by far. Livestock dying strikes at gods pictured as bulls and cows across Egyptian temples. Every plague targets a specific belief system, one god at a time, not just a random crop or animal. Even the final plague fits this pattern, since Pharaoh himself was worshipped as a living god, and his own household was not spared either. This was a direct challenge to the entire Egyptian worldview, dismantled piece by piece in front of the whole nation. Think about what that means for your own life right now, outside of ancient Egypt. Warnings usually come before consequences in almost every area of ordinary life. A doctor warns you before disease progresses further, and a manager warns you before you actually lose your job for good. Most people get more than one chance before things fall apart completely around them. The plagues follow that exact same rhythm over and over again. Grace, then more grace, then a final consequence that cannot be reversed afterward. There is also a quieter, deeper point hiding inside the Passover story itself. Israel was not spared because they were sinless or somehow better than Egypt as people, but because they trusted the instructions and put the blood exactly where God told them to put it. That same idea shows up again later in the Bible, where trust in a sacrifice matters more than personal performance ever could. The pattern is not really about Egypt at all, but about how patience runs its course and what real rescue actually requires from a person. Now for the 2 questions people always bring up about this passage. First one, did Pharaoh actually have free will? Since the Bible clearly says, God hardened his heart at several points in the story. Read the full account closely and you will notice something specific and easy to miss. In the earlier plagues, the text says, Pharaoh hardens his own heart, on his own initiative, and by his own choice. Exodus 8:15 says exactly that, describing his own personal decision in plain terms. Only in the later plagues does the text switch to saying God hardens it instead. The pattern strongly suggests Pharaoh made his choice first, again and again, until his own stubbornness became fixed and permanent inside him. God did not force a good man to suddenly do evil against his will, but confirmed a proud man's own repeated decision instead, sealing a pattern Pharaoh had already chosen for himself long before. Second question people ask constantly about this story. Were these plagues just natural disasters that got exaggerated over time by storytellers retelling the story? Some historians point to natural causes. like algae blooms turning the Nile red, or volcanic ash from a distant eruption causing days of darkness. Maybe those factors played some role in the background of events, but the timing is what really makes this stand out from ordinary natural disasters. 9 separate disasters, back to back, arriving and ending on command, stopping and starting exactly when Moses predicted they would happen. Even if you can explain one single plague through natural causes, explaining all 10 in that exact order, on that exact schedule, is a completely different problem to solve. So let's bring this back to where we started this video. You were told the plagues were random, scattered disasters with no real connection between them, but they were not. They were 3 waves of 3, each one building toward one unavoidable final blow. Pharaoh had 9 clear warnings and ignored every single one of them anyway. The 10th plague was never really about frogs or hail or darkness at all. It was about a stubborn heart that had no chances left to turn around and change course. That is the pattern Pharaoh never saw coming, even with 9 warnings staring him directly in the face, and it is still worth paying close attention to today, in your own life. Most of us get more warnings than we realize, right before the one moment we do not get any warning at all. Go read Exodus chapters 7 through 12 for yourself sometime this week. Notice the warnings as you read through them slowly. Notice the pattern building underneath the surface of the text. Notice exactly how many chances Pharaoh actually got before the very end. Then drop a comment below and tell us which plague stood out to you the most, and why it hit you that way. Subscribe for next week, when we break down the exact moment Israel crossed the Red Sea, and what almost went wrong right before it happened.